You're trying too hard, and it's making everything worse. You've been told that effort solves everything, that if you push hard enough, life will finally give in. But what if that's not true? What if some things break the moment you force them, no matter how much you care? The job you're chasing, the relationship you're clinging to, the peace you can't seem to find. What if you've been using the wrong energy all along? In this video, we'll explore a radical idea, that the things meant for you don't need to be forced, that alignment creates results, while force creates resistance. You'll learn how to tell when effort becomes self-sabotage, how letting go can be an act of deep strength, and why the most powerful people don't shout. They move in silence. If you're tired of chasing, overthinking, or constantly fighting reality, this might be the permission you've been waiting for. Watch until the end, because once you understand how true power flows, you'll never waste energy on force again. You think you're in control. You've mapped it all out. You've got the plan, the checklist, the timeline. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of it is an illusion. Life doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't respond to desperation masked as discipline. Every time you try to force things into place, whether it's a relationship, a career move, or even a personal transformation, you're actually creating tension. You're signaling fear, not strength. And life, in its own quiet language, resists that kind of energy. Think about the last time you tried too hard to make something happen. Maybe you pushed a conversation that wasn't ready, or chased an opportunity that kept slipping through your fingers. The more pressure you applied, the more distant the result became. That's not coincidence. That's resistance. When we grip too tightly, we lose the finesse that real growth requires. The river doesn't respond to a clenched fist, it flows around it, and life is no different. Now here's the twist most people miss. Control feels safe, but it's often the source of our deepest anxiety. When you operate under the belief that you can bend reality to your will, you set yourself up for constant disappointment. You're playing a game you were never meant to win. The need to control is born from fear. And fear is the enemy of clarity. Ironically, the more you let go, the more influence you actually gain, not over others, but over yourself. There's a strange calm that enters your life when you realize, this isn't mine to force. That acceptance doesn't make you weak, it frees you. It gives you access to a deeper kind of strength. One that isn't loud or frantic, but rooted, grounded, ready to act when the moment truly calls for it. And that's when things start to move, not because you pushed, but because you aligned. And if you're wondering how to tell the difference between effort and force, there's nothing wrong with effort. In fact, real change demands it. But there's a moment, subtle and silent, when that effort starts to rot. It slips into desperation. You don't notice it at first. You tell yourself you're being persistent, committed, even driven. But deep down, your gut knows the truth. You're not moving with purpose, you're running from fear. And the more you move, the more you lose sight of where you were actually going. Desperation is tricky. It wears the same clothes as ambition. It wakes up early, it works late, it tells you that quitting is failure. But here's the difference. Desperation doesn't work for something. It works against something. Against loneliness. Against shame. Against the fear that if you stop trying, you'll be forgotten. So instead of pulling you forward, it pulls you apart. You become obsessed with outcomes. Addicted to motion. Unable to sit with stillness. One way to know you've crossed the line? You stop enjoying the process. You dread the silence. You start manipulating people, timelines, and even your own emotions just to keep the illusion going. That's not strength, it's survival. And survival mode might get you through a storm, but it'll never let you build a life. You're not meant to hustle your way through everything. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is pause and admit, this doesn't feel right anymore. Here's the irony. Most breakthroughs come after you let go. Not when you double down in panic, but when you breathe, step back, and say, I've done enough. That's when clarity sneaks in. That's when the right door opens. Usually the one you stopped banging on. But to get there, you need to recognize when your energy has shifted. Because the line between steady effort and quiet panic is thinner than you think. And if you've ever wondered whether letting go means giving up, letting go has a bad reputation. People think it means you're weak, that you're quitting, that you've lost the fight. But that's only true if your identity depends on always winning. In truth, letting go is a power move. It's the moment you stop arguing with life. It's not surrender, it's selection. You stop wasting time trying to fix what never wanted to be fixed. And you start conserving energy for what actually matters. That's not giving up. That's growing up. The world trains you to believe that success is about never backing down. That grit is about holding on until your knuckles bleed. But think about this. How many people do you know who are still clinging to jobs, relationships, or versions of themselves that expired years ago? They're not brave. They're stuck. They confuse endurance with wisdom. But endurance without direction just leads you deeper into the wrong path. You can't win a war you were never meant to fight. Letting go means you've done the math. You've looked at the cost, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and you've said, not worth it. That's not a loss. That's a strategy. You don't need to burn out to prove you care. You don't need to force love, force results, or force timing. Choosing your battles means realizing not every hill is worth dying on. Some are just distractions wearing the mask of destiny. And the sooner you see that, the lighter you'll feel. And here's the unexpected gift. When you finally release what's draining you, space opens up, energy returns, peace rushes in, life starts to speak again, and this time, you're actually able to hear it. But that voice is subtle. It only speaks when you're quiet, when you're not too busy forcing outcomes. And if you're wondering how to tell when something is flowing naturally instead of being pushed. Ever watch a river navigate obstacles? It doesn't panic. It doesn't scream. It doesn't try to punch through the rocks. It flows around them, smooth, steady, unbothered. Nature doesn't force. It adapts, and it wins by doing so. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Yet somehow, we've convinced ourselves that pushing harder is always the answer. That if something doesn't work, we just need to grind more. But nature shows us, again and again, that alignment beats aggression. Think about trees during a storm. They bend. They flex. They give way when the wind is too strong, only to return upright once it passes. Now imagine if a tree tried to fight the wind with brute resistance. It would snap. That's what many people do. They snap, because they never learned to bend. They never learned the art of flow. Instead, they resist what's already happening, making suffering heavier than it needs to be. Flow doesn't mean passivity. It means you listen. You stay aware. You let reality inform your next move, instead of reacting from fear or ego. You become like water, present, adaptable, powerful without needing to prove it. You stop chasing every impulse and start choosing your moves with calm precision. That's when people start asking, how are you so composed? The answer? You stop swimming against the current just to feel like you were doing something. Here's the beauty of it. When you live in flow, things often happen faster, not slower. You conserve energy, avoid unnecessary conflict, and catch opportunities others miss because they're too busy forcing doors open. Nature doesn't rush, but everything gets done. And once you truly see that in action, you can't unsee it. So if you've ever asked yourself why certain parts of your life feel like an uphill battle, let's be honest, you've done it. We all have. You keep pushing something that clearly isn't working. A relationship that's gasping for air. A job that drains your soul. A goal that lost its meaning months ago. But you still show up, still push, still insist, maybe tomorrow. Why? Because we hate the idea that something we invested in might not love us back. So instead of letting it go, we try to force it into submission. That's not faith. It's fear in disguise. The real reason we keep pushing dead things is emotional debt. We tell ourselves we've come too far to quit now. We've given too much, sacrificed too much. And the thought of walking away feels like admitting we were wrong. But here's the truth. Continuing just because you started is like eating spoiled food because you already paid for it. You don't get your time back by wasting more of it. You get it back by cutting your losses with wisdom, not pride. The tragedy is that while you're busy forcing the wrong thing, the right thing often passes you by. Life rewards alignment, not obsession. But obsession blinds you. You stop noticing new doors because you're too focused on breaking through the old one. And that door? It's been locked for a reason. Sometimes life isn't saying try harder, it's saying this isn't for you. But you won't hear that message if your ego's doing all the talking. Eventually, you reach a moment where you have to ask, is this resistance a test? Or a warning? And deep down, your body knows. Your energy knows. That heavy feeling you keep ignoring? It's not laziness. It's your inner wisdom saying, we're done here. And once you stop pushing what doesn't want to happen, something amazing occurs. You get pulled toward what does. But only if you're willing to stop needing to win at all costs. Most people don't realize it, but the need to win is one of the greatest sources of inner conflict. Not because ambition is wrong, but because obsession with outcomes makes your peace conditional. If you only feel okay when you're ahead, you'll constantly be on edge. You'll measure your worth in trophies, approval, or progress bars. And every time life pauses, or worse, pushes back, you'll crumble, not because you're weak, but because you never learned how to feel strong without being on top. There's a quiet power in those who no longer need to win. They might still succeed, but it's not about proving anything. It's about alignment. They know who they are, so they don't chase validation in every result. And ironically, those are the people who often win the most, because they're not frantic. They make better decisions. They're calmer under pressure, and they don't sabotage themselves with desperation disguised as drive. Winning, for many, becomes an identity trap. If I don't achieve this, I'm nothing. That's a dangerous way to live. Because even when you win, it's never enough. The high fades. The target moves. And suddenly, you're back to chasing. But what if you didn't need to chase? What if your inner world didn't rise and fall with every result? That kind of stability doesn't come from more effort. It comes from less attachment. Letting go of the need to win doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering. It means your peace is no longer held hostage by circumstances you can't fully control. And in that peace, you think more clearly. You act more wisely. You become the kind of person others quietly admire, not because you always win, but because you're okay even when you don't. And that kind of grounded presence? It only deepens when you learn how to step back emotionally. There's a myth that detachment means you stop caring, that you become cold, distant, indifferent. But real detachment isn't about shutting down. It's about showing up without being consumed. It's about moving through chaos without becoming part of it. Most people live tangled in every emotion, every expectation, every outcome. But when you learn to detach, you don't become numb. You become free. You see the storm, but you're not the storm. Imagine watching a movie where everything goes wrong for the main character. You feel it, sure, but you're not in panic. You know the story's still unfolding. That's detachment. It gives you just enough space to respond, instead of react. And in that space, you get your power back. You stop needing to control how everything turns out because you trust yourself to handle whatever comes. That's not indifference. That's composure. That's clarity. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving people, or pursuing goals, or caring about outcomes. It means you do all of that without gripping. You stop placing your happiness in the hands of things that change, because they always change. And when you're attached, every shift feels like a threat. But when you're detached, change becomes information, not trauma. You observe it, adapt, and keep moving. And while everyone else is spinning in emotion, you remain steady. The world will test this in you, over and over. Plans will fail. People will disappoint. Timing will betray you. And in those moments, detachment becomes your shield. It doesn't block pain, but it keeps the pain from becoming your identity. And once you master that, you begin to notice something else. A stillness. A calm undercurrent beneath everything. And if you listen to that stillness long enough, it begins to reveal answers you've been forcing for far too long. Noise is seductive. It makes you feel like you're doing something. Scroll a little more. Plan a little harder. Talk it out one more time. But real clarity rarely comes in the noise. It comes in stillness. It arrives like a whisper, not a shout. But to hear it, you need to stop drowning in distractions. You need to sit in the quiet long enough for the dust in your mind to settle. And for most people, that's terrifying, because silence exposes everything they've been running from. Stillness is uncomfortable at first. The mind resists it. It throws you every reason to get up, check your phone, fix something, call someone. But if you push through that urge, something shifts. You begin to hear again. Not the outer world, but your inner one. The part of you that isn't frantic or afraid. The part of you that already knows what's true, but has been buried under expectations, pressure, and noise. That's where real clarity lives. It's funny, People say they want answers, but they won't sit still long enough to receive them. They expect truth to show up on a deadline, loud and obvious. But truth doesn't work like that. It waits. It watches. It only emerges when you're finally quiet enough to respect its presence. And when it arrives, it doesn't beg for attention. It settles into your bones like something you always knew, but forgot how to hear. And once you get a taste of that kind of clarity, you start craving stillness more than stimulation. You realize your best decisions weren't made in urgency. They came when you paused. When you stopped forcing, stopped talking, stopped chasing, and just listened. That's when you see what really matters. That's when you stop reacting and start responding. And if you've ever wondered how to sense the right moment to move, or wait, there's a big difference between motion and movement. Motion keeps you busy, emails, errands, checking the box. But movement? That's intentional. That's aligned action. It's when you're not just doing things. You're doing the right things, at the right time, for the right reason. Most people can't tell the difference. They rush in out of fear that waiting means missing out. But wisdom knows that not all moments are created equal, and that timing is half the battle. The most powerful people you'll ever meet all have one thing in common. They don't act just because they can. They wait. They observe. They let the noise pass. And when the time is right, they move, decisively, calmly, and without hesitation. That's the secret. The pause before the leap. The breath before the strike. It's not laziness. It's presence. And it only happens when you trust that waiting isn't wasting, it's aligning. Aligned action doesn't mean perfect conditions. It means internal green lights. It's that feeling that says, now. Not out of pressure, but from deep knowing. You're not second-guessing. You're not forcing. You're not seeking external validation. You act because you're anchored. And when you do, things fall into place. Not because it was easy, but because it was right. You weren't pushing uphill. You were stepping into flow. But to access that kind of clarity, you need to be okay with stillness, with letting others rush ahead while you hold your ground. Because that pause, that restraint, that's where alignment is born. And once you learn to trust that, something shifts in how you walk through the world. You stop chasing every spark, and wait for the flame. And those who can do that quietly, without showing off, start to radiate a rare kind of power. There's a kind of person who doesn't speak much, doesn't rush, doesn't panic, and yet, you feel their presence. You notice how calm they are in chaos, how steady they remain when others spiral. It's not arrogance. It's not indifference. It's trust. Deep, lived-in trust. Not in luck, or blind fate, but in life itself. In the idea that things don't need to be forced to be right, that what's meant for them won't require begging, proving, or chasing. These people have learned a simple truth. Trust isn't passive, it's practiced. It's built through 1,000 moments of letting go and watching something better unfold. It's remembering all the times life redirected you, not to punish you, but to protect you, to grow you. They don't need to control every variable because they've seen what happens when you stop clenching your fists and start opening your hands. That kind of confidence? It can't be faked. It's not that they never feel doubt. They do. But they don't let it drive the car. They let it ride in the back seat while something deeper, something quieter, steers. That's what makes them magnetic. Not flashy. Not loud. Just deeply secure. And while the world chases chaos, they move through it like water, fluid, calm, unshaken. That's not luck. That's inner work. That's discipline disguised as ease. And if you ever wonder how to get there, how to become that kind of person, it doesn't happen overnight. It starts small, with one less forced decision, one more deep breath, one pause where you used to push. And over time, it builds, until one day, you realize you're not chasing peace anymore. You are peace. And once that switch flips, the world starts to respond to you very differently. Here's the part no one tells you. Most of your suffering doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from your resistance to what's happening. You don't need to force the right things. You just need to stop forcing the wrong ones. What would happen if you moved through life without needing to grip so tightly? What would change if you acted from clarity instead of fear? You already know the answer. You felt it before, in those rare moments when you let go, and everything just clicked. This isn't about giving up. It's about giving in to what's real, what's ready, and what's yours. The truth is, power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's silent. Sometimes, it's still. And sometimes, it's simply the ability to walk away from what's not flowing. So here's your challenge. This week, don't force. Observe. Breathe. Wait for alignment. And when it comes, move boldly. If this message spoke to something deep in you, subscribe. Turn on the bell. Leave a comment about the area of your life you're ready to stop forcing. It might just inspire someone else to let go too.